And
I'm
hello.
guessing,
They did a great job.
yeah, I don't see any demons here, so we're all safe. It's daylight. Oh, okay, we're not safe. Everyone just calmly pull out your swords and aim for the all right, well, hello everybody. Welcome to Defeating Your Demons, Breathing Styles, and other mental health lessons from the Demon Slayer Corps. My name is Benjamin Tights. I am a registered psychological associate, psychology doctoral candidate. I'll be graduating this year. About time. Thank you. And I am the co-host of two mental health related podcasts. One is called Mental Health Quest, the Therapist's Office and Beyond, where we educate people about mental health issues, therapy, diagnoses, all that jazz. And then the other one is My Hero Therapy, where we talk about the psychology of the My Hero Academia anime and how we can be heroes IRL. I'm going to let my panelists introduce themselves. Who are you? What are you known for? Why are you here? Why are you an expert in demons?
Good afternoon. My name is Sarah Roldan, or as my nickname Sarita Kittel. I am a psychology assistant, and also I will get my PsyD this Monday. So I will be a doctor in clinical psychology. I have my own podcast about mental health that is called Oasis. It's a bilingual mental health community where you can learn about your mental health. And what makes me an expert about demon slayers and Harisha is that I also do hero therapy in the private practice with or actual heroes, first responders in law enforcement and active duty. So thank you so much for being here, and let's slay some demons.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Dr. Isaac Tights. As you can tell, a little bit of a relation here. I am a clinical psychologist and head of all mind health and all sleep health, hence Zenitsu. I specialize in working with sleep and dreams, as well as therapy with kids and also service members. So in California, online and in person. And I also use geek psychology, so any of my patients' interests I thread into our therapy so that they get to feel like they're learning those breathing styles and sleep strategies to become their best version of themselves.
And I'm king of the mountain. My American name is Dr. Elizabeth Han, and my Korean name is Han Pang Shil. I am also a licensed clinical psychologist who works with a variety of age groups as a generalist, and geeks of all ages, working with people mostly through telehealth in at least 40 states. Populations also include first responders, a lot of people who have experienced a multitude of different traumas, life transitions, individuals, couples, thank you, and families. I guess personally, I am considered a 1.5 generation Korean American, which means that I moved to the States in early childhood, and a lot of aspects of Demon Slayer also are really personal to me, and some of the themes that we're going to talk about today, and really excited to be here with everyone. Like this, look how full this room is. Woo, this is pretty amazing. Yeah.
All right.
There's seats all the way up front. Feel free to squish
Yeah,
in.
we have a seat next to the stress ball brain.
There's
Someone
two
wants on the front. We don't bite.
Unless you're,
Mexico.
unless,
All right. Well, I guess the first thing that we need to talk about is a big part of Demon Slayer is the breathing styles. That's where our main characters get their strength to defeat the demons. And when I was first introduced, I was actually first introduced to Demon Slayer by a client of mine, and I was actually working with them on like breathing techniques for relaxation and stress management, and he was telling me, oh yeah, it's just like Demon Slayer, and I was like, I'm sorry, what now? So I had to binge the whole show, and in preparation for the next session. But I found it really interesting that there are all these different styles of breathing that can help the characters do different things, and so I wanted to ask the panelists, what is real about the breathing styles in how they're represented, and also, are there also different kinds of breathing techniques that we do in real life that are not just, you know, the calming breaths that most people think about? And I'll just start with Sarah, and we'll go down.
So I love Demon Slayer because it teaches you actually real mindfulness in breathing that we use. There is something called when there is a progressive breathing. Actually, that does exist. Progressive breathing, if you have done breath work, is when you breathe through your chest, then through your belly, and you don't stop. You continue breathing. You can almost get high in oxygen due to that. Not recommending it because you get really dizzy. But that one helps you to ground yourself. And we have something that's called our vagus nerve that manage when you're stressed and you're very anxious. When you do deep breathing is what it helps you to ground yourself. So, just for example, if you cannot due to like the confines of the room, I want you to put your hand in your chest and one in your belly button, find your belly button. So just breathe normally, a deep breath in. A lot of you guys see how you're putting your hand up of the chest, because normally we're learning how to breathe through your chest. In Demon Slayer, when he does the constant breathing, he breathes through his chest all the way down to their belly. So now I want you to push that hand that you have in your belly button, passing your chest. So you're gonna breathe chest, belly, again chest, belly, and you feel like you're gonna explode. Now, let it go. So that is what Tanjiro does when he's saying, I have to do complete concentration breathing. So imagine running, doing that, just going, right? That gives you a lot of energy, and you can sustain more punches, you can sustain more stress, and you can run even faster and longer. So that's a real life breathing.
Thank you.
Vanessa Chan, you're amazing. In addition to activating the vagus nerve, this type of breathing exercises also can activate either your fight or flight response, or the opposite, which can be called rest and digest, or broaden and build. So when you're feeling too stressed, when you're feeling like you can't quite think straight, you are too much in your fight or flight response, which makes sense. Our ancestors needed to run away from a saber-toothed tiger or a demon, and they didn't need to think too much. They just needed to get oxygen to their legs and to get going. So nowadays, we don't have any saber-toothed tigers. Maybe we do have demons around, that's to be seen. But our ability to switch from our stress response to our relaxation response can be very useful. So one strategy we can use to relax is this diaphragmatic breathing, breathing all the way down to the diaphragm. Or if that doesn't work for you, if your cosplay is a little bit cinched, you could also do a deep breathing exercise where you breathe out for twice as long as you breathe in. So we'll do a little quick version of that too. I'm not going to kind of measure time, but for your own breathing, just breathe in for your own count of 3 and out for your own count of 6. You can do another 3 in and 6 out. You can even try 4 in and 8 out, or keep it 3, 6, whatever you'd like. You might notice a bit of a tingle down your spine. You might feel yourself relaxing a little bit more. Even my voice is chilling out a little bit because I practice with you guys. So being a therapist is kind of nice because you get to be meditating and breathing deeply with every patient that you see. And you guys can keep on doing this breathing if you'd like, no pressure. Whenever you notice that your stress level is getting to like a 5 or a 7 out of 10, that's your cue to breathe it back down to a 3 or lower. So you've been able to activate your rest and digest, your broaden and build, and let's build on that theme with the next presenter.
I agree with everything my underlings just said. So, a lot of times I say that westernized psychology and counseling techniques that are taught are oftentimes repackaged things from a lot of Eastern practices. And there are a lot of roots related, and there are a lot of themes of Buddhism in Demon Slayer, and there are absolutely different aspects of like the breath of Buddha. If you have interest in researching some history. And when practicing these different techniques, I do think that one of the cautions, of course, is being culturally humble and aware of who we're speaking to, and that a lot of times clinicians will say things like box breathing or use a count of 4, when 4 is not really the best number for a lot of Eastern Asian cultures. Put that out there, it has a lot of connotations with death, and not exactly the thing that you would find very calming and soothing for your body or your mind. But along with this, there are absolutely tenets and historical references to utilizing breath in fighting stances and as athletes. And so people do this in a variety of different settings. Also, if we're having interpersonal or conflict with another person or ourselves. So sometimes we can get very overwhelmed with a lot of stimulation. And so if people are feeling activated here personally, or if you find that you can't keep your cosplay on, or if you're finding that you're having conflict with another person, so a lot of times when we do couples work and different things, we also encourage people to take at least a 20-minute break, because it is actually shown that it takes about 20 minutes for your cortisol and adrenaline to drop down. But that's also depending on what you're thinking about during your break. Because if you're thinking about how much you want to punch someone in the throat, that's not necessarily going to be the most soothing thing to activate what's called your parasympathetic nervous system, or essentially the brakes. Because we can absolutely push the gas and get our anxiety going, getting all of these things going, but then we aren't necessarily able to think as clearly and have as great communication. And so whether we're working with kiddos or other people, if somebody is activated, including yourself, it's really hard to talk logically to that person and to think clearly as to what your next move is going to be. And so I see this a lot of times where people are trying to talk to someone who's really upset and trying to tell them why they should or shouldn't be doing something, or they're asking them, why did you do this? And it's just going to further escalate things. So a lot of times, if we can interrupt that, either by encouraging them to pay attention with their senses to other things, spatial senses, and notice certain things in the room, and if we can encourage some of that breathing technique to tell our bodies to chill, a lot of that is going to help us then come into more of that ability to go from, if you think of the brain into 3 sections, the base level, the midbrain, and what's more in the prefrontal cortex, or your decision-making abilities. That's going to be a lot more helpful, and people tend to not say or do things that they feel really proud of when they're super activated. So a lot of times it's really helpful to utilize breathing techniques and to bring it back down. And this can be done in lots of different playful ways, including blowing bubbles. It can be done blowing balloons together. It can be done through imaginatory kinds of play. Or if you want to imagine yourself doing some breathing techniques as a demon slayer. These are some different ways to engage yourself and to use those techniques before you're in an activated state. Because when you're activated, that's not the time to learn something new. So those are just some of the really great pieces to also add.
Yeah, and I was gonna add that, similar to what Sarah was talking about, where you can use breathing to kind of activate yourself and be more engaged. There is breathing exercises that help people who are feeling anxious to get excited about something. So like if you are struggling with like stage fright or something similar, There's some more kind of rapid breathing that sometimes is called breath of fire. So I use that a lot with clients that are very anxious about starting something new or talking to somebody that they like, because that can be very like anxiety provoking if you want to tell somebody that you like them. So more rapid breathing, you take the deep breath in and then kind of really, kind of like you're a dog panting, can get your blood pumping and get you to feel really pumped and excited. And when my client told me that there was even like a breathing style that was called fire breathing, I was like, oh, that's literally what we just went over in session. So I found that was really relevant. So moving from the breathing styles, I want to talk a little bit about a kind of a heavy topic, but it is a very powerful topic as well, which is grief and trauma as we see it in Demon Slayer. Most, if not all, the main Hashira and Demon Slayers, they became Demon Slayers because of some traumatic events. They've had loss. How does trauma and grief kind of inspire us to act towards our goals, or how can it give us that drive to be more in line with our values? What do you guys see in the anime and how it relates to that in real life grief work or trauma work? Isaac, you want to start?
Sure. So eventually, all of us will lose something, someone, whether it's maybe a romantic relationship and everyone's fine and well and it just doesn't work out, but it's still a loss. But even a pet or a loved one. And when we do lose those that are close to us, we may experience something called a continuing bond. This is a way that we keep our relationship with them going strong. So Tanjiro constantly is engaging with his loved ones, always remembering them, whether intentionally thinking about them, speaking to them, or unintentionally. Flashbacks will come to them, or dreams of them. And so each of these characters, in one way, shape, or form, when they have lost somebody, they try to maintain that connection. They do actions in the name of their loved ones, or they may carry the hilt of someone that was very close to them in order to kind of carry on their memory. So when we have lost loved ones, we can go and do these actions as well. It is especially important to keep in mind how we're keeping our connection with our loved ones during what are called anniversary effects. Their birthdays, holidays, major life events that you want to connect with. So the way that you can prepare ahead of these big events coming up is think about what you would like to do, maybe a little bit different, that anniversary effect around. So that you're not entirely missing the person, but you're doing something special in their name or for them or keeping them in mind, whether it's keeping a place at the table, whether it's going and doing their favorite thing or eating their favorite food, even if it is just a chibidango. So by all means, take care of yourselves, take care of your relationships in the present, and you can also maintain your continuing bonds, whether it is intentional or unintentional. And by all means, if you do not randomly feel their presence, if you do not randomly dream about them, that doesn't mean that you don't have a connection with them. It just means maybe you need some more sleep, maybe you need some more help remembering your dreams, in which case that might be another topic.
Well said, Manichi. Absolutely, grief is something that we all experience in different ways. Even with our own identities, like as we progress in different ways, or different roles that we play in our lives, going from a new school, new teacher, all these different pieces absolutely play a part. And I think that one thing that tends to happen in Western thought processes is that if you are having visions of people who have passed away, that's not considered a very positive thing. But in a lot of other cultures, that's very normal. And that's a very important part of maintaining a relationship. It's really an important part of the healing process. And I think it's important that we're also naming that. I think it's also really important to name how difficult life transitions can be and how they are a given and they're going to happen. And that's like one of the tenets of accepting that there is going to be some suffering, there are going to be moments in life that are not necessarily our ideal, and we're not always going to perform at our ideal. And that healing is not a linear piece. Progress is not linear. It can take dips, we can regress. And I think it's also really important to note that trauma, as we all know, there are these negative side effects of trauma that a lot of people talk about. And a lot of people talk about post-traumatic stress. But very few people are talking about post-traumatic, well, they talk about it as a disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. But not very many people talk about post-traumatic growth and the ways in which we overcome and how our resiliency plays a part in that. And so for anyone who is interested in looking that up, the originators of this, I should remember their names because I did my dissertation with them, citing a lot of their stuff. Tedeschi and Kalu, they note that there is a higher amount of appreciation of life is one domain that you might see some growth. Relationships with others might deepen, that you see new possibilities in life, that you see some spiritual growth, and you see personal strength. And those are 5 areas that we can see a lot of these characters growing in ways that if we're just considering trauma and difficult challenges in life as these negative pieces, we're also missing out on this other whole picture of what it means to be human and what it means to live in this world that is so full of so many, many challenges. And just thought that that was also really important to note.
And tap into that, I want to touch also in the post-traumatic growth, which is a beautiful thing that is exemplifying Demon Slayer, is complex trauma. Because all the characters are kids. For the majority, all their traumas happened when they were little, when they were developing, when they were going from those 3 parts of their brain, right? And Nezuko is the one that I love the most, because when we try to cope with things, they call it that we go to our before and after trauma, right? She goes, anybody wonders why she goes to be a little kid? Like being so tiny, that to being taken care of, that is called regression. We do regression when we feel the most comfortable and the most loved with, and she exemplifies that, especially when she was about to be a full demon and get blood for a human. If you notice, is when she finally was able to go through the stages of grief, because she was in complete denial of what happened, not only to her family, to her life, to her body. And then in that moment when she broke down, sorry, spoiler alert, I forgot. Everybody has seen that, we saw that part, right? Okay, good. When she breaks down crying, and then she goes back to be little and being taken care of by somebody else. And this is a lot of the post-traumatic growth. It has to be with, we provide our needs, either that we didn't have when we were kids, or the needs that we have as an adult. How many of you guys have a hard day and you're like, I just want something sweet, or I just want, in my case, I was like, I want a plushie, I want a new plushie today, please, right? And also, that's what a lot of us, when we watch anime, it's not that we're watching cartoons, don't dare to say that to an anime person, please. It's, we are reliving our traumas in a safe way through them. We're seeing their growth through them. If you see the growth of Tanjiro or even Nezuko through the whole series, it's like we have the shock of the trauma with them, the complete denial that this did not happen to us, right? And then it's like, okay, we're gonna fight, we're gonna be in that anger, some of them, not all of them. And we have all the if you will, symptomology that is negative in PTSD transform in something that gives you a redemption story. Even the demons have their redemption story for the most part. There's some that they have other disorders that it's not about redemption, it's about treatments. So if you have dealt with childhood trauma, this series, when you're a teen, when you are an adult or young adult, this series help you to heal through the 7 stages of grief, because grief doesn't go away, it just expands, it grows, and that way that little button doesn't get touched that much every single day, but you learn how to use that to move you forward. So out of this panel, what we want to say is, yes, they go through a lot of traumatic events, but there is things that you get that are very positive out of that. Look, Tanjiro, he was completely in la la land, like, no, nothing happened, I love everybody, I'm never angry, until the very end. Is when you finally see him, you have grown. You went from denial to shock to now feeling the anger, and then it will come the redemption after that.
So the show is just chock full of trauma. I mean, from episode 1 till the, I'm not done yet, so please don't spoil anything beyond the, I'm still in the Swordsmith village arc, so no one spoil after that, please. Is there after that? Did they do the next arc after that?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, good, so I'm more or less caught up then, okay. So, but trauma is shown to affect people in various different ways in this anime. We've talked about how the demon slayers, how Tanjiro and Nezuko try to grow from their trauma. But we also see the demons. One thing I really like about the show is that these demons aren't just evil for the sake of being evil. Almost every demon, once we are introduced to them and when they're doing the battles with Tanjiro, we start to get a little bit more of a glimpse as to why did they choose to become a demon? Because when Muzan is turning them into a demon, they kind of have to choose it to a matter of degree, because otherwise they die. And a lot of the demons had really horrific traumas in their human lives that, while not excusing their criminal behaviors to become a demon, does help us to understand those choices. And I know I was talking with Sarah about this. Both Sarah and I work in forensic related fields, so working with offenders, doing court evaluations. And I previously was working in a treatment center for people on parole. So I was actually doing therapy with the criminals. And I was really fascinated by this anime and how Tanjiro addresses these demons. He doesn't see the demons as just, oh, well, they're demons, so I have to kill them. He tries to understand them. And I really believe that in Demon Slayer, we have a lot of different ways to defeat the demons in our lives, whether they're physical demons or internal. And one of the biggest ways is through compassion. All of the characters, to their own degree, express compassion for someone else. In various different degrees. I mean, people might say, oh, Inosuke is not the most compassionate, but he is, actually. So I'm wondering if we can talk a little bit about how compassion can be a superpower in helping people to move past those traumatic events that either they've experienced or that they know other people have experienced. Anyone can take that one.
Well, I will say, if you think when they are in the court of the Hashiras, Nezuko and Tanjiro, his whole arc is about kindness, and the way that we can give ourselves forgiveness is through community. He taught, because the only difference between the demons and the demon slayers is that they have compassion, right? The demons have lost that compassion due to humanity, right? What happened to them before. The demon slayers have so much compassion for their stories and the people that they're trying to help. But they were lacking in the beginning of the series, they were lacking compassion towards one another, because if you notice, each one of them has their own sector, so they're their own little world. But at the very close to the arc that you're in, they all come together to understand that it's like, we can work together and give compassion to ourselves, even to the demons. because they understand that the kindness that we give and forgiveness that we give to ourselves is the one that we will give in later. And this is, like I said, when they grabbed Tanjiro and Nezuko and they were going to kill her, and she was like, no, that is the most compassionate moment that you can have, when you are able to surpass the person that you think just because either the color of the skin or the way that they dress or the way that they talk or they wear before have criminal records, that they are not the demon. There is something past that. And when you get to see past the labels is when you can get compassion to yourselves and others.
There is meditation called meta meditation, which is basically about building compassion, a way to develop it. And essentially, you think about, first off, someone that you really care for. You kind of draw up that feeling of compassion. If you guys are imagining such a person or animal, then you kind of get to feel it in your chest, in your head, wherever in your body, you feel that sense of compassion for that person. And then maybe you extend it to yourself. You get to kind of feel like you care about yourself. Maybe you envision yourself in present when you were younger, and then maybe a neutral person, someone that is an acquaintance. You want them to have a nice day. May they be well, may they be healthy, may they be peace. And then you can start to extend it to someone that maybe you don't have that much compassion for, but you keep holding on to that feeling and you direct it towards this new person. And then you can extend it beyond to the people in this room, to the people in the conference hall, to the people in the city, the state, the country, the world, and whatever's out there. So Tanjiro does a great job of just continuously being genuine and compassion to everyone he meets. There's something to thank them for, whether they're carrying him to the swordsmith village or whether they're just wishing him a nice day or handing him a rice cracker. And he's just genuinely appreciative. And it spreads, it's very contagious. You see afterwards characters who are like, what a nice guy. Mm-hmm. So this ability to kind of practice this skill, very useful. It spreads to Zenitsu, who for the most part couldn't care so much about these non-women characters out there, but starts to learn to love them. And it carries over to the Hashira, who finds some respect for him. And even some of these demons, granted, as they're already disintegrating, but at least at the very end, they get to feel and experience some of that compassion. So hopefully you can experience this regularly, you can practice it regularly, and you can pass it on to those around you that you care for, and maybe even those you don't. Kill them with kindness, but keep them alive.
Sleepyhead makes a good point.
Zenitsu!
So, I think one of the things that I tend to encounter when I'm working with people is oftentimes they find it easier to show compassion towards others than themselves. Yeah. So, not that it's always easy to show compassion towards others, because sometimes the way that our brains work is we try to make shortcuts so that we're using less energy, and it is calorically more expensive to take out the energy and resources to be curious about someone else and what's going on with them. That's absolutely a truth, and that happens. And so in an effort to not do that, a lot of times we make quick judgments. But those quick judgments, a lot of times, don't allow us to really understand someone fully. And that happens for ourselves too. So as we're talking about the power of compassion, I think it's also really important to talk about self-compassion. And if people are interested in looking more up on that, there are two really big names in the self-compassion world. One is Kristen Neff, though I have a little bit of a hard time giving her a lot of credit because a lot of her tenets are based in Eastern philosophies that have existed for centuries, way before her. And Tara Branch, who has a more of a formulatic kind of way of going about it too. So Kristen Neff says 3 things that are really important and some things that happen a lot in the series that you can see. One is that you want to have more of that self-kindness over that self-judgment. And part of that is when you already accept that you're not always going to be at your ideal and the circumstances around you are not always going to be at the ideal, that can lead you to being more kind to yourself in that moment and kind to other people, that sometimes the circumstances around us just aren't the best. Also that we as human beings are going to experience this and that we're not alone in that. So part of being, in that aspect of humanity is that we're not alone in experiencing this. And so rather than isolating ourselves in shame and trying to hide that or hide aspects of ourselves by trying to, as it was shown in the series, they do many things like trying not to show people that you eat so much food or that your hair is a different color. So there can be different things that you might try to hide about yourself in shame. But when we are open about that and we're talking about, hey, these are the silly things that happen to me or the experiences that I'm having, and these are my emotions that I'm having, that is a tenet of being more compassionate to yourself and others as well. And not necessarily zooming in too much on that, over-identifying with it, but more of that mindfulness, more of that holistic understanding that, yeah, I might have a breakout or something, but there's also the rest of me, and not just zooming in on the one blemish, right? Because that sometimes is what happens, and that becomes the only thing that we're thinking about. So those are some of the tenets that Kristen Neff has for us. And then Tara Branch has this acronym called RAIN, which is to recognize what's happening, to allow it to exist as it is, to investigate it in a kind, curious manner, and to nurture things with a loving presence. And those are all aspects that when we do that for ourselves and when we do that for others, we're actually more likely to nurture versus attack or try to harm. And so those are just some of the aspects of compassion that you can really see in the show and experience as well.
Absolutely. When you were saying that about, the recognizing and allowing for it to investigating with that curiosity, it reminded me of the Entertainment District arc when Tanjiro is fighting the demon siblings. He started realizing, these are siblings. They love each other, but they fight and they argue. And I mean, not all siblings fight to the same violent degree as those two. I mean, I definitely did not fight with my brother like that. I don't remember us ever fighting like that.
Only on like the Taekwondo mat.
Yeah, when we had to. But Tanjiro was able to find that compassion for this other being, whether they are human or not. They are a being that has emotions and has memories and has pain. And Tanjiro also has had times struggle with the self-compassion. I noticed he judges himself so harshly when he's not able to defeat a demon or to save somebody. How many people here tend to judge themselves pretty harshly? Yeah. You know the saying, you're your own worst critic, right? It's the truth. But what Elizabeth is saying about self-compassion can help us to, if not get rid of those negative thinking, at least lessen the weight of it. And we see that with Tanjiro in that same arc where he was beating himself up, oh my god, I couldn't do this, I couldn't fight, I couldn't do this. And then he just remembered, okay, hold on, why am I doing this? Other people struggle too. Even the Hashira, who is a Hashira, was struggling. So I can still fight because it's important to me. And so that leads us into one other thing, which is the values. Why does everyone in the show do the things that they do? What are their values? And how does connecting with our values help us to be more compassionate, to find that post-traumatic growth, and to breathe clearly? Anyone want to take that?
I'm reminded of the Flame Hashira. Do we have any Flame Hashiras in the audience right now? Well, nonetheless, their lesson from their mother was essentially, if you are born with an ability, power, more than the others, it is therefore your responsibility, if any Spider-Man heads getting kind of their senses tingling, to convey that, to use that, to protect those, and never use it to harm others. So even Zenitsu, who has this innate ability to quickly get to the root of the problem and solve things as quickly as he can, lightning fast. Though he doesn't want to put himself in danger, but he has this skill and he has to use it. It would be a waste not to. It would be a disservice to his master who taught him everything if he just let it go to waste. Even though he is afraid, yeah, there's fear there. Yes, the amygdala is firing off. And, all right, I'm going to protect the defenseless, because that's what I'm here to do. They found that purpose in life. So whatever skill it is that you have, or you're developing, or you're finding out that might be there, by all means, seek that out, use it, and even if your value is just to be of help, be of service, or to be a good person, or to give yourself the kind of care and compassion that you wish you got. Use that as your direction and keep on breathing as you do it.
In talking about values and core values, so we have societal values, we have family values, and then we have core values. The core values is no matter what, those are not violated. Like you can go through the Demon Slayer and the Hashiras versus the demons, they have similar values, core values when they were human versus when they become demons and Hashiras. Even the Hashiras has the same core values to be loved, to be cared for, and to be seen, heard, and attended to. So when you feel like, I don't know how to help this person, I don't know how to talk to X, Y, and Z person, I want you to think about this. Do I'm listening what they're saying? Do I'm hearing the need behind it? Do I'm seeing what they need? And seeing what they need, it doesn't mean, oh, they need a new purse, new shoes, new car. No. What they really need, sometimes we just need like, I hear you. I don't get it, but I hear you. Sometimes we want to be seen. And that's why this one, when Tanjiro does the killings of the demons, that's what he does. He sees them. When he puts in one of the lower fives, the spider, when he puts his hand in his shoulder and he finally remembered what it was to feel human. When was the last time that you, not touching people without permission, but you saw somebody and you see their pain or their happiness and you kind of like absorb it? Yes, like that. So I want you to just do a quick exercise. It's gonna feel a little awkward if you're a little introvert, but if you're not an introvert, I invite you to go to your right, and I really want you to look at their eyes. And look to your left, and look at their eyes, and say something nice to yourself inside.
Keeping in mind that eye contact might not be comfortable for people for a variety of reasons, and that's totally accepted as well.
Yeah, that's what I say. If you're an introvert, you can. Yeah.
This is just an invitation. You don't have to.
You don't have to.
There's no quiz on this later.
Okay. How many of you guys have your stomach drop because yes, eye contact is, and that was the perfect example. This is my example that I wanted to actually do, because not everybody's comfortable with that kind of value, right?
Well, it's not just a value thing, also keeping in mind that for different neurodivergent presentations, eye contact is physically uncomfortable.
Right.
And even some cultures have different rules or prescriptions for when to look into one's eyes, either when you're talking or when you're listening, or when it's an elder or when it's a student. But hopefully everyone can communicate that to your audience or to your speakers so that we're all on the same page and no one is inadvertently offending or harming anyone.
And with this, see how the values change or your needs change. If you just go through life obeying certain things without questioning them, so They didn't know I was going to do this exercise for that same reason. This is a perfect exercise of you guys, because I am a neurodivergent. I can look at people, but I cannot put the eye contact. I will look over here at you. So it's not that I'm offending you or anything, it's just too much for me to deal with, right? What we were exemplifying. But this is a perfect example why Demon Slayer or any kind of anime is easier to, how many of you can just close your eyes and see in Tanjiro's eyes, or in your favorite Hashira, you're like, oh my goodness, right? Because it's not training, because you see part of you in them. And that is where the self-compassion and your core values evolve. There is some that will stay with you forever, but we have a therapy that's called ACT therapy, which it helps you to investigate core values that they don't serve you, or certain values that don't serve you anymore in the trajectory of your life and knowledge.
I think another piece that's also really important to keep in mind is that most people, when their conditions are met, can be rather successful in a variety of ways. And unfortunately, in our society and in many places, people's conditions are not met. And it is harder to look at someone and place certain values on them when they're trying their best to survive. And for a lot of people, they have learned some ways to survive that might not necessarily work in all situations. And so they are learning new skills, hopefully, because it's not serving them to do the same things. So for some people, it might serve them to be rather cold people. It might serve them to be more competitive. It might serve them to not trust people, right? So there might be certain things that people are doing or have done. And I think that's also an important piece that we also recognize when we're talking about values and how someone may or may not be acting, and being compassionate with that as well.
So I'm imagining things like Rengoku's younger brother, who just because he couldn't make his Nichiren blade change colors, okay, so he couldn't be a demon slayer, but he could still function in that society. Even the swordsmiths, they found something that they can do, something that they value, supporting an effort. So just because we may not be able to be on the front lines of some certain effort, we can still help in some certain way. We can find our way that is healthy. You can find, well now I'm thinking of Naruto, and find your ninja.
Find your Demon Slayer way?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'd like to open it up to questions from the audience. Anyone have any questions for us?
And if you ask a question, you're welcome to get a special prize, either one of these fun little figures, and of course, a squishy brain if you haven't already, or a second one if you'd like.
My therapist suggested various different relaxation techniques, like breathing in colors, different colors, and sort of going through the alphabet, like apple, banana, try to find a word. Do you have any other suggestions on techniques? Because just breathing alone isn't enough for myself.
Yes. There are lots of different ones, and some of them work better for people depending on what's going on. So there are absolutely going to be situations where someone's like, I have a Netflix subscription, and Headspace is part of that. So they can just log right into that and they can try to do some things. But some people, and I work with some people that as soon as they say something in visualization that doesn't work for them, or as soon as the voice is not something that they like, they turn that right off. So there are different kinds of things, and a lot of them available for free now, which is amazing and wonderful, or part of other subscriptions, like if you already have a Netflix subscription, or if you wanted to just log into a YouTube and say something like, do nothing, breathe, that there is actually a visualization of something getting smaller and bigger to do that, and that sometimes is really helpful for people. But sometimes, and I say this because not everyone has to have an individual therapist in order to continue in their healing journey. There are many pathways to healing, but sometimes people do want to work with someone, and that is an option, of course. Like, you have your own therapist who I'm sure if you were to tell them, like, hey, this isn't enough for me, that they can help you work through a variety of other things, including what are your other sensory pieces that might be helpful. Would a weighted blanket be helpful for you? Would something soft? Would rubbing Velcro be helpful? Like, what other types of things would also help you with that, as well as other visualizations, imagining a light source shining down on you, providing healing to you? Would it be putting some of your worries into a container and visualizing closing that up? Right, so there are a variety of different ways to go about things, and I don't think that one method works for anyone. I mean, look at how many breathing techniques there are. So, sun breathing, love breathing, insect breathing.
May I add also, there is bilateral music. A lot of my clients, we go through different stages through their whole senses, because we need different stimulations for different, kind of like, I don't like the same flavor of water, so I try different ones. So it is bilateral stimulation, either through your ears, through your vision, through your tact. There is also pressure points that we can do for meditations. A lot of my clients do not like the visualization meditations because it will bring a lot of stuff for them. So actually, some meditations or some practices are very somatic, meaning you go and do exercise with them. The hot places or cold places, the cold plunges, the hot plunges are very good to snap you sometimes. So if you need more, there is many different ways to put you and ground you, and you can always ask your therapist or just Google like somatic different senses to ground, and that will help. Another one, if you're like tired of the alphabet, you can do the numbers.
Yeah. Also, just to clarify, bilateral means both sides of the body, so your right and left side, so stimulating both sides. Biolateral would be referring more to David Grann's brain spotting, which is also incorporated, so it's a break off of EMDR. But those are also very helpful, meditative, and great treatments that, again, have a lot of roots in other healing modalities.
Traditions, yes.
Yeah. Should we keep going with?
Yes, I think one more question, I think, because we have just like a little over 5 minutes left. Saw this guy up front,
Okay.
and if we do have time for the one in the back, then.
I'm curious, which breathing techniques have worked best for each one of you?
I mean, I guess it depends on the context.
Just not like in the show, just like actual
Yeah.
breathing technique.
Yeah, so I guess it depends on what I'm using the breathing technique for. For me, I try to use a lot of breathing techniques, not so much to calm down, but to actually excite myself. So like I mentioned, when I'm anxious or nervous, so I would use a lot more rapid breathing for that. That helps me because I get nervous about things. A lot of anxiety, my neurodivergence is, oh my God, people are going to judge me. So I use that to help me to kind of feel more engaged.
I do more grounding techniques due to asthma. Doing some breathing techniques may create asthma attacks. So I do a lot of bilateral and grounding techniques instead.
I do a lot of mindful breathing, just kind of listening to the sound of my breath or feeling it in my throat, which can also be called like yoga breathing. So a lot of like Darth Vader kind of breathing, or diaphragmatic breathing if I notice I've been getting too tense and I need to calm myself down.
Yeah, my husband knows when I'm upset because I do take a big deep breath. Also, there are definitely times in sessions when I'm working with someone who's super activated where I will purposefully slow down my speech and slow down my breath to do what's called co-regulation, or helping them regulate with me as an anchor to help them soothe. So we can do things for ourselves and others. In addition, I by practice, I grew up in a family that practiced a form of Buddhism by the Nichiren Daishonin sect, like Nichiren Shores. So, thank you. So it involves more of a chanting meditative component where we recite like parts of the Lotus Sutra, and I think that's also a really beneficial breathing aspect.
I know we had somebody in the back there we got 5 minutes to go, so.
Yeah, I'm sorry that is not necessarily for like the breathing technique parts.
That's fine,
Like,
asking
very
away.
specific thing that I wanted to ask, if a chance. And I think that this would probably work for like a couples like therapy person. Like, how do you have someone who like came in as like this person who's dear to me has like turned away, they become toxic, they're with someone toxic now, and it's like nothing like gets to them, they don't communicate anymore, they're just not the person you think they knew anymore. Every memory of them is now tainted because they've gone away. Like, how is that something that you deal with, something you have advice for?
Like if they become a demon?
Yeah.
So if I understand the question correctly, there's someone that you used to know and they have progressed in a way that you see as toxic and they're no longer communicating with you.
Yes, they're with someone that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't like me for whatever reason and
Yeah.
doesn't allow the person that I used to hang out with to talk to me anymore. They are like a helicopter kind of person. They're like, you cannot
Yeah.
talk with her, whatever. I'm like,
That's tough.
okay. And he's just willingly
Mhm.
letting it happen. It's like, why?
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
It is absolutely a form of grief that I'm hearing you talk about. And I think it's also one of the pieces about being human is we can control what we say and do and what we don't say or don't do. And that's like one circle of control. And then we have a circle of influence where we can make requests, but we can't make someone do that thing. We can suggest, we can make it seem really attractive, but they may or may not take us up on that. And then you have that circle of concern, which is everything outside of that. So a lot of times when I work with people, they really appreciate it when I make an example of like dietary restrictions. Like if somebody chooses not to eat meat, or they choose to be vegan, and maybe they don't buy the groceries in their house, they can make the request, or maybe they're going to dinner, like a Friendsgiving or something. They can make the request that there are some vegan dishes available, but you can't make them. And that's the influence. The circle of concern is like you as an individual are not going to be able to change the farming and dairy industry in this nation. Like that's not going to happen. At the same time, you can utilize your level of control as best you can, and you can try to make your influence as great as you can. Because it's not going to do you any good to show up to that Friendsgiving and like pour fake blood on everything and call everyone a murderer, because you're not going to get invited to dinner again. What you can do though is make a decision whether or not they choose to, like what are you going to do? Are you going to bring your own food? Are you just going to come by with dessert? Like what are you going to do? Are you going to eat beforehand and come after? What your choice is your choice, and you can make your influence, you can make your case. The most effective vegan influencers are going to be the people that like try to make delicious food and show people like, look at this recipe. I know you want to try this vegan mac and cheese, it's delicious. And then people are more on board with it. But it is that piece of accepting what is within your power, and it really sucks when there are situations and things that are outside of that. Absolutely.
There's a joke that I like to tell some of my patients. How many psychologists does it take to change a light bulb? The answer is just one, but the light bulb has to want to change.
Yeah. The other joke is that A lot of people are in therapy for the people in their lives that are not in therapy.
Yeah.
That's a good one, I'll use that.
So to end on that laugh there, thank you all for coming and joining us on this panel. I'm gonna go down and where can people find us? Again, my name is Benjamin Tights. You can find me on the social medias, all the social medias for my two podcasts. Mental Health Quest is at MHQ Podcast, and My Hero Therapy is at My Hero Therapy on all the socials and wherever you listen to podcasts.
Is it okay to take a picture of the room? Y'all are so wonderful.
If anyone's not comfortable with the picture,
Just go down.
yeah, just pull us
Cover your
into.
face. And in my case, oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Do I have to say? Yeah. Okay. My name is Sarita Kittel at Oasis Podcast. You can have I'm in Apple. I'm in all the platforms with the podcast. It's about mental health, and all social media and Instagram at Oasis Podcast. And also, my regular therapist name is Sarah Roldan, and if you can find me also in social media that way.
Hello again, everyone. My name is Dr. Isaac Tights. Like I said, I'm the head psychologist of All Mind Health. You can find me on all the socials at All Mind Health. Sometimes there's a 1 at the end of it. I don't know what you're meaning to it, yeah. But also, if you want to see any of our other geek psychology presentations, a lot of them are on my YouTube channel, just All Mind Health, and you can see us present on a variety of topics. You can also come on up and grab a free stress ball shaped like a brain that has our company name, and I have a few business cards if you'd like.
I don't really have anything that I promote.
She says this every time.
I don't. I'll do it eventually.
It's okay, I'll make a podcast
yeah,
with you.
So I do have an Instagram. It's just like my own. LIZZY, N as in Nancy, S as in Sam. That's just my @ So there's a link tree there where you can see a lot of different ways to get in contact with me. You can also email liz@geektherapy.org, as I volunteer with the Geek Therapy nonprofit a lot and some other nonprofits. Or if somebody's looking to get in touch with an Asian psychologist, I also do a lot of sliding scale work as well. So, yeah.
And for the people that asked the question, can you please come over here? That way you can pick your prize. For everybody else, thank you so very much for coming. And
And everyone's always welcome to come up and get us
Yeah,
for
take
free
it.
and go
Yeah.
as well.
And if anyone wants to stress